everybody. Welcome to the virtual UCLA Career Center. My name is Grace and I'm a senior sociology major.
Hi everyone, my name is Nai and I'm a third year African American Studies major.
And we are here to present to you our presentation on resume and cover letters. We are a part of a team of undergrad students called the UCLA Career Peers, whose mission it is to help you accomplish your career goals. So the way that we're going to do that today is let you know everything you need to know about resumes and cover letters. Wonderful.
Great.
So there we go. So the first thing we want to talk about today is resumes. So the purpose of a resume, the number one purpose of a resume is to get you an interview. It's also to help you prepare for the interview and additionally to help you improve your confidence.
Now, does anyone here think that there is one way to write a resume? We're going to let you think on that for a little bit, and then Grace will go over and click the next slide and show that there is not one way to create a resume. Each resume is going to be individual to every specific person, what they're looking to showcase in their resume, which includes specific skills or experiences. So your resume is your resume. It's going to be your own, so it's going to look different from anyone else's, and that's okay.
So this is a very important fact to keep in mind, which is employers typically only look at a resume for 15 to 30 seconds. So employers, hiring managers, and recruiters don't have a lot of time on their hands. And so when they see your resume, they're just going to scan it. And what we want to help you do in this presentation is make your resume as strong as possible so that you will be able to stand out in that initial 15 to 30 seconds.
Yes. Now, here are some resume tips for building a more powerful resume, and like Grace said, help you stand out a little bit, because as the previous statistics showed, employers don't spend a lot of time on your resume, so you really want to make sure and use these tips in order to make sure that your resume stands out. So the first tip are margins and spacing. So you want to keep your margins between 0.5 to 1 on all sides, and if you're finding that maybe your font is a little bigger or your resume is like just over 1 page, then spreading out your margins and really looking at your spacing can help you condense a little bit more. The second tip is font and format. So you want to make sure that your font is anywhere between 10 to 12 points, and using any font that is easily legible, and use it consistently. So a common font that's seen is Times New Roman, Arial, Cambria. Those are some pretty common fonts that are well known amongst students and employers, and they're easy to read. And again, keep it concise. So if you use one font, make sure that you use it all throughout your resume. And then length, so try to keep it to 1 page. Some people have a plethora of experiences and skills, and that's not a bad thing, but you want to make sure that if you're tailoring your resume to a specific job or internship, that you're using only the experiences that are most applicable to the position that you're looking to fulfill. So fill the page completely, like I said, again, so if it's 1 page, great. If it's 2 pages, make sure that it's a full 2 pages. So if you have a resume that's 1.5 pages, think about cutting some things down or adding more. And then for the fourth one, for the applicant tracking system complaint, so you want to avoid tables and text boxes, as they may make your resume difficult to scan for keywords. And then for the fifth resume tip, do not include photos of yourself or personal information such as your marital status, citizenship, or date of birth. And even when we start getting into the header of your resume, you don't even have to include your specific location, but we'll elaborate on that more. And then finally, take your time to make sure that your resume is error-free. Tailor each resume to the specific position. So again, if you need someone to look over your resume, definitely come into the Career Center during our drop-ins, which we'll get more into. Have someone look it over, have friends and family look it over, just so you know that your resume is totally polished.
Yes, totally. So getting more specifically into what your resume should look like, we want to kind of walk you through an example resume in this presentation. So the very first thing you want to start with is the header. So it's extremely common to have your name in usually large letters and bolded in the very center and the very top of your header. And then I really like this example, and I use it myself, of having the general location, just your city and your zip code. It it used to be common to include your entire address, and that was kind of back in the days when you might receive something in the mail from this potential employer, but that's not really relevant anymore. So it's best to just say your general city and zip code. And then, of course, you want to include your contact information, which is your phone number and a professional email. Your UCLA email is just fine. And then if you have a LinkedIn profile that you're proud of and that you think might enhance your application if they took the time to look at it, then go ahead and include an abbreviated web address for your LinkedIn. So within your LinkedIn settings, you can click around and actually alter the web address of your personal profile. I've done it with mine. And then if that doesn't work, there's also this website called TinyURL that you can use to shorten the address also.
So next up is what's your purpose? So first and foremost, the objective is optional. The only time that you'll really be using an objective is if you know specifically what position you're applying for. So for example, this objective is very specific. It says seeking summer marketing internship position at Snapchat. So for example, if you're at a career fair, maybe the best thing wouldn't be to have an objective. It's really up to you because you might be passing out your resume at different companies and looking for all different just types of opportunities. So a note to have for when doing an objective is really try to make it very specific.
Definitely. Another thing about objectives is that they're useful if you're trying to transition between industries. So if you have a degree in finance or business and you want to have a position in marketing, you might want to say, business econ major seeking the marketing internship. But that's still kind of there's a lot of different ways that you could do. But if you're switching between industries, an objective is useful to have. Okay, and then so underneath the objective, you want to have your education. We recommend that you have the education at the very, very top of your resume because going to UCLA is really cool and impressive. And so we definitely want you to flaunt it. So as you can see, there's a standardized format that we recommend where you have the school name written in bold and the location on the right. And then we recommend you write out the type of degree you have, Bachelor of Arts or Bachelor of Science, most likely, and what the degree is in. Include any minors that you have. Include your GPA if it is above 3.5. That's what we recommend. If your major GPA is more impressive, I've advised students to go ahead and include that. And definitely consider listing honors, activities, or relevant coursework. Relevant coursework is a great way to distinguish yourself as being quote unquote trained in a specific field. For example, if you're a psychology student who has taken a lot of biology classes and you want to let that shine, that's a great place to put it. But what you want to definitely do is list out the title of the course as opposed to the number of the course. So perhaps you took biology 172. An employer doesn't really know what that means, right? They know it's a biology course, but they don't know it was meiosis and meiosis. Sorry, I'm not a biology major, but it's something specific in biology. And then additionally, if you studied abroad or if you were a transfer student, we recommend you include that as well. The only reason you might think about not including it is if you're running out of space.
Yes, and one thing before we go on to the next slide, Grace, is it a 3.5 or I believe it's above a 3.0, right?
Oh, is it 3.0? Is that what we're recommending?
Yes.
Okay. I'm taking it back, stepping it back. Refer to Nye's expertise. That definitely makes sense because within the wide range of majors, North Campus and South Campus, GPAs and their averages really range. So 3.0 is perfectly fine to include anything 3.0 or above.
Yes, awesome. Okay, so great. So, what have you done? So, you're going to ask yourself this when you're formulating your bullet points. And for your bullet points, this is all where their experience comes in. So, for example, we have in this example the Daily BRUIN, UCLA. So, you always want to start off with the subheader. So, in this case, the subheader is experience. Your subheader doesn't have to be so general or so bland. You can play around with it and ask yourself what type of experience what type of experience are you going to have under, this experience. um, so you always want to have where you worked and the location. So this person had the Daily Bruin, UCLA, which is great. And they also in the right-hand corner have where it was located. And then they have their position, which is advertising account executive. And then over at the right, they have how long they were working there. And then for the bullet points, which we'll get more into, your bullet points want to be around 3 to 5, 3 at the least and 5 at the most. And but yeah, so this is what your experience is going to look like. So just a quick overview, where you worked, what position you had, and then again, we'll get more into like the specifics of the bullet points, but your bullet points are really going to hone in on what you did, how you did it, and just some result bullet points as far as like how impactful you actually were in this position.
Absolutely. So let's get into the specifics of the bullet points, because the bullet points are essentially the most important part of the resume. So there's some 3 key takeaways that we want to give you today. We want you to use action verbs. So if you refer back to, I don't know if I can click back. Yeah, if you refer back, you'll see that every one of these bullet points underneath this experience starts with a strong action verb. And that's how we recommend you start every single one of your bullet points in your resume. So we want you to start with an action verb. We want you to use keywords from the job posting. We're going to get into that. And we definitely want you to sprinkle in your skills. Additionally, we want you to include results and quantify whenever possible. And as Nye said, we want to have around 3 to 4 bullet points. 5 is also acceptable. And preferably you would keep the bullet points to 1 line of text.
Yes, so how to target your resume. So as Grace beautifully mentioned, so you want to have your skills plus their need, and you want to try to form a connection. So that really showcases that you are the best candidate. So you want to review the job description. So a great thing about looking on Handshake, if you guys are familiar with Handshake, is that Handshake does a great job at providing the job description and what that company is actually looking for in their candidate. So you really want to read the specific skills and qualifications and the job responsibilities, and again, connect it to yourself to see, do you meet all of the qualifications? And if not, even if you don't meet them in a traditional setting, how can you use transferable skills, and meet them in a new or different light that maybe previous candidates cannot meet them? So you want to underline words and phrases that match your own background, and also take an inventory of your experiences and ask yourself how and where have you applied these skills, and also again, in what way, even if, let's say, those skills that you obtained weren't in a specific setting that this job is looking for, if that makes sense. Maybe Grace can elaborate what I'm trying to say. But yeah, so ultimately you just want to use the keywords from the job posting.
Sorry, I was muted. I definitely agree with everything Nye said. Me personally, when I'm applying to an opportunity that I'm really, really excited about, I literally, like if I'm on Handshake or if I'm on Indeed or LinkedIn, I copy the text of the job posting and I paste it into a separate Google Doc that's just my private Google Doc. And then I go through and I highlight the keywords. And then I look at their descriptions, the job postings descriptions of what they're looking for in a candidate, what a strong candidate would look like. And I kind of comment, I like make a comment to myself like, oh, I did that, at my job at the Career Center, or I did that at the internship I did last summer. And so I know what I need to be focusing on as I'm drafting my resume and my cover letter.
Yeah.
So yeah, hopefully that clarified. Wonderful. Moving forward. So we talked a little bit about the components of a bullet point, a strong bullet point. A strong bullet point begins with an action verb. It hopefully includes keywords from the job posting. And then not only that, an A+ bullet point includes results from your efforts in your previous job experience. So here on this slide, we've provided kind of a formula of how to compose and draft up this A+ bullet point. So you start with, what did you do? Then you move on, that's usually an action verb. Then you move on to how you did it. That specifies what kind of softwares you were using or what kind of strategy you applied, whatever. And then you move forward to elaborate with details. And then finally, as like the ringer of the A+, what were the results? Did you fundraise money? Did you satisfy the client? What happened, right? So we're gonna move forward and explore some examples.
Yes, so
In a little bit, sorry, not immediately.
great. So the first thing that you want to do with your bullet point is to start with an action verb. So in order to highlight your personal accomplishments, you want to start with a strong action verb in order to demonstrate what you've accomplished, highlighting specific skills in like a specific realm, such as like communication or leadership or organization. So you want to stray away from using weak or very common verbs, such as assisted, helped, worked. I mean, nothing's wrong with using those verbs, especially in the beginning when you're just trying to get a hang of formulating a bullet point in general, but we do want students to get more used to using strong verbs because, like we mentioned in the beginning, you know, using that kind of verbiage can really boost your confidence because maybe you did more than just help or assist. Maybe you oversaw or maybe you designed. So, you know, that's also giving yourself a little bit more credit as far as what you were doing for that job or internship. And on the side are just some examples of strong action verbs that you can use. And I have the career guide with me right here. And in our career guide, we also have a few pages on, you know, you can also get this online and we'll talk about this soon, but how you can find action verbs if you feel like you're running out or you are using strong action verbs, but you keep on using the same ones. So yeah, that's for action verbs.
Yes, I definitely recommend checking out the career guide and specifically the pages that Naya is referencing that has the list of action verbs. They're actually categorized by what skill set they imply, right? So if you led something, the recruiter is going to look at your resume, see that you led a project, and assume, oh, I bet this applicant is a leader, right? So there are certain verbs that imply certain skill sets. And it's really great if you're trying to imply that you have a skill set to be specific about the verbs that you're choosing. Moving forward. Okay, cool. So here's some examples that we're going to compare of what a good bullet point could look like and what a great bullet point could look like. So let's get into it. So this first bullet point is put books back on the shelves. This is something that a student was doing at their job at the library, right? This is one way to say it, but another way to say it is quickly learned detailed cataloging system and organized over 300 resources per hour. I think we can all kind of intuitively understand that the latter is a more impressive bullet point because it points out certain skill sets. It implies that the student is able to learn new systems and new information quickly, and that they're able to handle a large capacity of tasks with ease, right? So, and then to continue on to another example, organized all sorority philanthropy events. That's cool. That's awesome. But this other bullet point, organized all sorority philanthropy events, which resulted in donations of over $4,000, has a little bit of extra fairy dust in it, and that's coming from the quantified result of the efforts. Cool.
Yeah. Okay, so again, just going over bullet points and everything that we talked about. So we mentioned a lot of things, but I think it helps for students to see it, you know, all in one place. So when we mentioned action verbs, when we mentioned like the 4 steps of how to get the perfect bullet point, this is ultimately what it's going to look like. So going back to experience, we see highlighted in this slide action verbs. So we see manage, design, create, raise, and then we also see quantitative values as well, which Grace was mentioning previously, 100 clients, $1,000. And then we also see skills, which are in green because that's very important, especially for South Campus majors and even North Campus majors that just want to showcase that, yes, they have a little South Campus in them as well. So, adding, even if it's just Google Drive or collaboration tools such as Slack or Trello, things like that, you want to highlight it. And then also, how did you collaborate? So with clients, with advertising campaigns, and the marketing plan, stuff like that. So this is ultimately what your bullet points are going to look like with everything that we previously went over. And don't be too intimidated by these bullet points, because these things take time. And over time, when you go back to look on your resume, you'll just see, oh, I could add this and this and this. And then, you'll finally get to where you feel, confident in your bullet points and what you have to showcase.
Absolutely. So just moving forward to give one more example of what a good experience section looks like a listed previous job experience. You can reference also the following, the developed, the applied, and the analyzed. And you'll notice, and we've color-coded it also, that throughout your resume, you should be implementing this strategy, this formula.
Great. And then for the You've Got Skills, now we're focusing on skills, which we want to know these are, how do you say it? Not transferable skills, but technical skills. These are technical skills. So what we see that's very common with students is that they put soft skills in this under skills, like leadership or fast learner. Those are skills that you're going to showcase in your bullet points, right? But as far as technical skills, which are like computer programming or learning language, that's what you're going to put under the skills department. So for computer, this person has proficient in Microsoft Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and then they go on to more advanced things such as Adobe Photoshop, and so on and so forth. And a great thing to do is, provide levels or provide a little bit more as to like how advanced are you at this specific program. Are you basic? Are you intermediate? Are you proficient? So feel free to let employers know what level you're at. Because even if you're not the most advanced, maybe in Photoshop or any specific computer program that they're requiring of their candidates, it does help to know that you have basic knowledge or that you're even learning. So also keep that in mind as well. And then same goes for language. So this person put fluent in Spanish. If you're learning Spanish, if you're basic, if you're conversational, which means you can converse with others in a specific language, but you can't necessarily read or write it, then definitely be as specific as possible because employers want to know. And then other lists of skills. So there's technical, there's transferable, there's specific, there's laboratory, and this is all just going to depend on not only what you bring to the table, but also what the employer is going to be looking for.
Speaking from experience, I'd like to re-emphasize Nye's advice to keep your skills technical as opposed to soft skills, like leadership, communication, etc. Because you should be demonstrating your soft skills in your bullet points, and not only there, but also in your cover letter, which we're going to continue on to in this presentation. So it's really kind of just a waste of space. Cool. Agreed?
Agreed.
Okay. Sorry if that came out harsh. But I used to list my own soft skills, and so I've since cut it out of my resume because I demonstrate it in my cover letter, etc. So moving forward, final sections, or I guess these could go kind of anywhere underneath education. But if you want to include kind of an additional section to talk a little bit about your personality or your interests, that's okay also. Keep in mind also what Nye was mentioning when she first explained the experience section. You can title that whatever you want. So you could say marketing experience, and then you could list, the marketing internship that you had 2 years ago, right? Front and top of your resume, if you want that to be what the employer sees right away, right? And then you could continue on to additional experience and talk about your job as a barista here at UCLA, right? So you can understand, I hope, from that example, why you would want to section your experiences in a purposeful way, so that the very first experience that you list is an experience that is extremely relevant to the position that you're applying to, right? Because the rule of resumes is you have to list experience in reverse chronological order within a section. So that means that your most recent experience is supposed to come first, and you're supposed to move backwards in time from there. So if you want to highlight the marketing internship you had 2 years ago, there's a workaround for that, and the way to work around that is to make it a separate section specifically for that experience and other marketing experiences that you've had. Nye, was that clear?
Yes, that was clear.
Okay. So here below on this slide are additional ideas for headers for sections that you can have in your resume.
Okay, so now we'll be moving on to cover letter, which is something that sometimes we have an individual like resume presentation, but when we do the cover letter and resume presentation, we want to think of it as like peanut butter and jelly or chocolate and peanut butter. Any fantastic combination of things that go together perfectly. That's what you want to think of in regards to your resume and your cover letter. So we're going to get into that as far as like what's the purpose of the resume, and most importantly, what's the content that you'll be putting, what's the purpose of the cover letter, and what's the content that you'll be putting in your cover letter to really make it stand out.
Absolutely. So let's talk about the purpose of a cover letter, which Nye definitely hinted at just now. A cover letter is really about telling your story and about advocating for yourself. So let's go through these 3 points that are on this slide here. You want to captivate the attention of the reader, and you want to differentiate yourself. And you additionally want to communicate interest in the organization and fit for the position. So fit is a huge concept when it comes to cover letters. You want to be able to articulate and demonstrate that you as a worker will be a good fit for the position and for the values and mission of the company as a whole. But additionally, you want to demonstrate how working at this specific opportunity is going to be a good fit for your personal career goals, right? So it's a mutually reciprocative synergy, and that's what a good fit is. And then finally, you do want to convince your employer of your skills and accomplishments. And this is where we're talking about soft skills. It's perfectly acceptable in your cover letter to say, I'm excited to apply my leadership skills to this, this, and this. And then we're going to get into the specifics of how to do that. Wonderful.
Great. So your cover letter should, not only going back to what Grace said, explain why you're a match for that job. So highlighting, your education, your interests, skills, experiences that are most relevant to the position you're seeking, but it should also be a reflection of your true voice and give insight into your thought processes. And this is, I think, the most important thing, because the cover letter isn't going to be as technical as your resume. The cover letter is really a place for you to shine and your voice to come through and you to add, your own little flair. And I feel like that's really the best thing and the most fun thing about the cover letter is that you can really show yourself, not only your technical skills, but also highlight, your values and things as a person that would make you stand out in addition to your resume, as a candidate. Yes.
I think it's also important to mention that a cover letter is not a summary of your resume, right? Because your resume speaks for itself. It's a list of facts about what time periods you were working at places and what your responsibilities were. But a cover letter is a time for you to speak for yourself and highlight specific instances that you want to highlight from your resume, not to summarize everything you've ever done. Cool? Okay, so parts of the cover letter. So similar to what we did with the resume, we're going to walk you through an example cover letter in the following slides. So something specific that you want to do is to use the exact same heading, like just copy and paste it from your original resume. So this is going to help the hiring manager keep it straight in their head what cover letter goes with which resume, right? So because you don't want it to get mixed up. And you also want them to easily understand how they can contact you and how they can learn more about you. So from there on, from the header 2 below, you want to go ahead and include a company address. This is very simple. Just Google Zoom headquarters if you want to work for Zoom or whatever it is. Just Google it and include that address. It's not a huge deal if it's the wrong address. Really, the purpose of including the address is to signal professionalism and signal that you're willing to go the extra step to be professional and thorough. And so starting from the company address as if it were a letter to be mailed, from there on you want to say dear blank. So sometimes in job postings there's a specific person who is correlated with that posting, a specific recruiter or hiring manager, employee who is in charge of hiring the next intern or the next position, whatever it is. So if you are looking at the posting and you can find that person's name, go ahead and include their name. But if you don't know specifically who will be reading your resume or your cover letter, you just want to say dear hiring manager, just generally, dear hiring manager. Then after that comes the body paragraphs, which we're going to get into individually. I'm certain we'll say it multiple times, but I do want to just start that process of telling you that a cover letter is supposed to be pretty short, 3 to 4 paragraphs at most. So just so you know. And then additionally to signal professionalism, you just want to, have a simple sincerely, you could make it best or all the best. And then if possible, and you can do this on the free version of Acrobat, so I know for a fact that it is possible, you do want to include a electronic signature in this cover letter, in your cover letter. And again, the reason for that is simply to signal professionalism and to signal that you're willing to go the extra effort to hit all the marks.
Great. So next are the parts of the cover letter. So as Grace mentioned, you're going to use the same header as the resume. I actually think we don't have to go over the slide because you pretty much said everything on the previous slide.
Apologies, guys. So if you wanted to read what everything I just said, you can go ahead and read it right here on this slide.
Yes.
I'm going to go ahead and click forward.
But great job, Grace. Perfect. So the cover letter content, so this includes the body paragraphs. And what we mean by content or body paragraphs is that you're going to have an introduction paragraph. You're going to have a few body paragraphs, as Grace mentioned, so 2 to 3. And then you're going to have a concluding paragraph, which I think we can all agree is probably the easiest, most, just wrap it up paragraph. So in your cover letter content, you're going to be explaining why they should hire you. And how you're going to be doing this is by choosing maybe 2, 1 at the least, maybe 3 at the most experiences, most applicable experiences. And that's how you're going to be conveying, this is why you should choose me, because these are my experiences and these are the skills that I've gained that are most applicable to what you're looking for. And you're going to tailor each cover letter using the job description. So just like how Grace mentioned her method of like copying and pasting and seeing where she can fit into that job description, you want to do the same with your cover letter. You really want to look at, okay, what are the most relevant experiences, not only in time, but also in conjunction with the job description, and how can I show like a clear relationship between the qualities they're looking for and the traits that I have, or even the traits that I'm learning to have. And then thirdly, beware of stylistic pitfalls. So for example, vary your sentence structure. So not every sentence starts with I. You want to mix it up a little bit.
Yes, the cover letter is a piece of writing. And so if you know for a fact that writing is not your strongest skill, we recommend you take your cover letter draft to the Writing Center at UCLA. Or just show it to a friend, get some advice on how to string your ideas together, because that is an important component of this as well. There we go. So let's get into it. First things first, the introductory paragraph. We definitely recommend some specific things, but really I want to go review this subheading right here, which I think is very important. You do want to capture the reader with a story or a narrative. So this could be an idea. You could be selling yourself as the perfect candidate, right? That's a narrative. Or it could be something about how you've always been passionate about this career from the time you were 8 years old. And that's also a narrative. right? So there's a lot of different ways to approach this, but if you want to have an A+ introductory paragraph, you want to be weaving that story and advocating for yourself as you do it. So let's get into these 3 steps. You definitely want to mention what specifically drove you to apply. It's awesome if you could actually, in addition to saying something about being a good fit for the position, if you could also talk about how your personal values and your personal life goals are in alignment with the values of the company. This is kind of like the extra icing on the cake that makes a recruiter go, okay, wow, not only are they a great fit for the position, but they're also going to be extremely dedicated and invested as a worker because they have a personal drive that's in alignment with what we do here, right? So, and then moving forward, we want to talk about how you should state the position or type of work for which you're applying. So that just means you want to very clearly say, I'm applying for the outreach coordinator position. And you definitely want to make sure that you get the title of the position correct, because if you don't get it correct, it's kind of like, is this a mistake? Or like for example, if it was outreach coordinator versus communications coordinator, they're kind of the same job, but one company might call it one thing and one company might call it the next thing. So you definitely want to like reference the job posting and make sure you don't mess up the spelling of the company's name or the official title of the position. And then this kind of subheading under number 2 is important also. It is rather common to explain in the introductory paragraph how you learned about the position. If you just stumbled onto it online, like on LinkedIn or on Indeed or Handshake, if you just kind of found it, it's kind of not worth the space to talk about it. Really, the recommendation that we have is if you've somehow connected with an employee who's currently working at that company, you want to mention their name, especially if you think they might be an advocate for you in the application process. I hope that was clear. Now, if that wasn't clear, go ahead and add on.
No, it was very clear.
Okay. And then finally, you do want to introduce yourself. A common introduction that I use is like, as a sociology major at UCLA, or as a strong communicator, right? So introduce yourself. Who are you? What do you want? What skills you have? And then this last question is really, really great to answer. What makes you uniquely qualified, right? What makes you stand out from other applicants? And that can vary based on who you are and what posting you're applying to.
Great. So just an example, going over the things that Grace was talking about previously. So you can just kind of read this for yourself. We'll give you a few minutes to really digest this and take this in. But some things that really make this introductory paragraph stand out. Again, Grace was saying as a, that really helps students, kind of clarify as a what, like, what am I trying to represent? How can, I best get to the point? I use as a because it's just so easy to kind of just outline. But in the beginning, the person introduces themselves. So as a Division I varsity college athlete, I'm drawn to Under Armour because it understands the connection between high quality performance apparel and confidence on the field. So they're already not only introducing themselves and why they're interested in the position, but also that connection in regards to what they're looking for, and then also what the company is offering and how those two things can connect and how they can both benefit one another. Something that also stands out is what Grace was saying as far as like name dropping or putting in how you found the job or internship. So a couple sentences down is after recently discovering the brand marketing internship, I spoke with Brianna Collin, who is an alumna of my university, currently serving as Under Armour's brand marketing strategist, and then going on to say she encouraged me to apply, and after reviewing the job description, I believe I'm uniquely qualified as yada, yada, yada. And then not only do they drop in some skills that the employer can be looking forward to them, further explaining or just looking forward to them having and bringing into the position. They also connected their own personal philosophy with the core value of, with the Under Armour's core values. So overall, I think that this is a pretty good introductory paragraph. Don't be too intimidated by this introductory paragraph. I mean, obviously this person just has a great connection to sports and also a physical connection with the brand marketing strategist. So this person has a lot going on, which is great, but it's okay if your introductory paragraph doesn't look like this. And you know, feel free to, we see this person's voice basically, but it's okay if your voice doesn't exactly sound like this, because your cover letter is going to be unique to you, just like how your resume is unique to you. So when you see this, don't be too intimidated, because we don't want this person's voice to be reciprocated over and over again. Employers want to hear your own individual voice, so that's going to look a little bit different, and that's something that is going to help you stand out as a candidate, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. This is one of many ways to start a cover letter. And one thing that I do think is worth mentioning is that the student also distinctly articulates what the company is about. So Under Armour is the company, and she says that they understand the connection between high quality performance apparel and confidence on the field. And then by the end of it, she actually quotes from perhaps an ad or even their mission or vision statement, turn good into great, staying hungry for whatever comes next. So don't be afraid to, and actually we strongly encourage you to click around on the company's website, find their about page, find their just anything that you can access to figure out the tone of who they are, and hopefully even draw from their mission or vision statement. Okay, awesome. So let's move forward into the body paragraphs. Optimally, there would really be one, like if you do want to keep this cover letter short, it's okay to have 2 body paragraphs. It's also completely acceptable to make it just one. But really, obviously, the purpose of this is to expand on your previous experience and connect it back to the ideas that you introduced in your introductory paragraph, right? So you want to connect it back to why you're qualified and why you're uniquely like the perfect fit for this position, and why you would excel in the position if you were given the offer. So you want to select 2 to 3 major accomplishments. So note that this is not your entire resume. This is even I've done just one experience, like one company that I've worked at, and I list multiple aspects of that position. That's perfectly acceptable also. But you can also, if you want to expand into different companies that you've worked for, or internships that you've had, or volunteer experiences that you have, because I think it's also important to mention at some point in this presentation that you don't have to get paid. You don't have to have gotten paid for a job in order to list it on your resume. So if you volunteered at your church, or if you did some kind of extracurricular activity like softball, if you think it's relevant to the position that you're applying for, you can absolutely list it on your resume, and you should not let that hold you back. So that relates back to this, because you can draw from anything that you want to draw from, as long as you think it's relevant to the position and supports your argument for why you're uniquely qualified and a good fit for the position. Okay. Whoa, this subheading actually says exactly what I just said. So they should demonstrate your initiative, creativity, follow through, communication skills, and problem solving capabilities. Yes, for most jobs, that's going to be exactly what you want to demonstrate. But definitely keep in mind what the job posting specifically is asking for, and when possible, tie back to that. And then you also, as we were talking about earlier, you do want to do research on the company. And if you can, in your cover letter, speak to the needs of the company. Like, I understand this company needs a strong marketing team because in order to increase sales, something like that. And then speak to how you can supply that need. That's really, really strong, really strong. And then additionally, and I did touch on this earlier, but we do want to emphasize it, your writing is a reflection of you. So it does not have to stick to the structure that we're suggesting or the examples that we're giving. If you are strongly compelled to advocate for yourself in a specific way, we definitely encourage you to do that. And yeah, resist taking a fill in the blank approach. You do want to let your passions shine, because this is the place to let it shine.
Awesome. So again, we just have an example of the body paragraphs, and this is going within the same order, talking about the same thing, the same person talking about um, them wanting to obtain the position of the brand marketing internship at Under Armour. So in this body paragraph example, they're talking about, they're giving one example talking about their experience as a merchandising intern in Boston, Massachusetts at Reebok. And they're also talking about how that specific experience gave them not only gave them the skills that are most applicable to this new position that they're applying for. Such as, for example, they said, I helped the team make a first selection of incoming buyer requests. And then they also added in some numerical value as well. So we see that from that previous skill that they obtained, which could be collaboration or leadership, the Reebok inventory was eligible for redistribution, was initially valued at 5 million due to this person's analysis of the buyer options. So we see how that person had a connection with a positive result, or how that person was impactful. And then in the end, it says the partnerships team selected a buyer willing to offer the highest price for discounted merchandise, resulting in a minimal loss of the company. So this person is just not only taking some of the aspects of the company as a whole, but they're also seeing how they helped out in little ways. It doesn't have to be big ways. It could just be little ways of how you had an impact on that company or within that internship. So that's also a good thing to think about as well, because companies not only want to know what you did and how you did it, but also how you were impactful. Like, why is it so important that you were on the team, and why is it so important that they have you on their team? And that also shows that as well.
Absolutely. So moving forward to the concluding paragraph, we're almost done. And definitely just keep in mind that if this is the first time that you're drafting a cover letter, the first one is always the hardest, at least for me. As I've written cover letter like further and further and further, multiple cover letters, you get into the groove and you know how to articulate and you know how to advocate for yourself. So it will get easier. So with the concluding paragraph, it's just like you're writing an essay for a class. You want to restate your thesis, which is that you're a great fit for the position. You want to summarize your points, which you detailed further in your body paragraphs. And then finally, to signal professionalism, you want to express gratitude and re-emphasize your interest in the position. So a common way to do this, which I believe there's an example on the next slide, is just to say, like, thank you for your consideration, and move forward to actually request an interview. This is actually common and not impolite to say something like, I look forward to discussing my qualifications further in an interview, or I would love to make time in the coming weeks for an interview, right? It's totally normal, and we actually recommend that you do it.
Awesome. So again, I think Grace pretty much went over everything, but in this specific example, the person just reiterated the skills that they had previously mentioned in their body paragraphs. And then also, we love how they mentioned their own personal attitude, so my self-driven attitude as a student athlete. So again, going back to what they already mentioned in the introductory paragraph, and how they mentioned that they were a student athlete, and weaving that into an important aspect of why they're applying to this job or internship. And then this person said a little bit differently than what Grace mentioned, but again, it's your cover letter, so you can mix it up a little bit. But this person said, I can be available for a phone screen or interview with short notice. I'm grateful for the opportunity to be considered for the brand marketing internship role. And as previously mentioned, the conclusion paragraph is probably the easiest. It's very straight to the point, and it just wraps up everything.
Perfect. So that concludes our resume and cover letter presentation. I do hope that what we said was clear enough, and if it wasn't, I hope you can reference the slides. But basically what we want to do now is outline how you can further use the Career Center to help you along your application process. So moving forward from there.
Yes. So for resumes and cover letters, again, if you need a little bit more clarification, then we have the career guide, which I previously mentioned. So this is what it looks like in the flesh and everything, but you can also find this online if you sign into your Handshake account. Or if you just go straight to this link here, you can find the career guide at career.ucla.edu. And the physical version looks the same as the online version. The pages, the page numbers, everything. And then we also have weekly drop-ins. So it does look a little bit different now that we're going virtual, but they're still available. They're still at the same time. So Tuesday through Thursday, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. For undergrads. And then for graduates, I believe is it Tuesday through Thursday, 2 p.m. to 4 p.m., Grace?
I think that's correct.
Okay. Yes. So our drop-ins are for 15 minutes for resume, cover letter, and then also job or internship searching if you guys need help with that as well. Yeah, and you can find that through Handshake, book an appointment on those following days at those following times, and we'll be there as career peer interns or career engagement educators will also be there to assist students with resume, cover letter, and any other questions that they may have.
Definitely. Additionally, if you're watching this video, you probably already know what Handshake is, but Nye and I definitely recommend that you click around within Handshake as much as you possibly can. There's a lot of awesome features of that website. So specifically, you can, it's one of the functions that Handshake serves is as a job search engine. Like a portal to search for jobs. And so if you find a job on Handshake, that means that the employer specifically wants to recruit UCLA students, and not only that, actually paid a sum of money to put this posting in front of your eyes. So as UCLA students, thankfully, our work is valued in the job industry, and really we're a source of human resource and talent that employers are really excited to interact with. So the point of that is, if you are searching for a new internship or job opportunity, I would personally recommend starting with Handshake, because if you find a posting on Handshake, there's a certain guarantee that by nature of being a UCLA student, you are the type of candidate that they would like to hear from. So that doesn't mean that you're the perfect fit necessarily and you're absolutely going to get it, but it means that there's a higher likelihood in theory that they would want to invite you in for an interview, as opposed to applying to anything else on the Great Wide Web. So moving forward from there, on Handshake, another feature is that you can access the events that are happening at the Career Center. Now, at this period in time, these events are virtual Zoom webinars and meetings, and they are listed on Handshake, and you can find them there in RSVP. And that's actually how you find the specific Zoom link. When school and campus reopens, I assume that events, live events, in-person events will be posted on Handshake as well. So definitely keep referring to it as you progress through your UCLA career. And then finally, another awesome resource that's available through Handshake that's kind of similar to our drop-in appointments, which is a conversation with one of the career peers, is a conversation that you can have with a professional staff member who is one of our career engagement educators. So these are individuals that are trained in career education and are available to talk with you for a whole 30 minutes, which is double the time of the drop-in appointments. The only thing that you have to do to set up an appointment with a specialized career engagement educator is to log into Handshake and reserve it ahead of time. Cool.
And then moving on, some additional resources that we have, and I feel like this is like the perfect time since we're going virtual for people to take advantage of these resources more than ever, is we have Vault, which I'll just go through them. I'll just say them all and then go through them individually. So we have Vault, Focus 2, Interview Stream, and Going Global. So for the first one, Vault, you have access to in-depth info in regards to specific industries, companies, and professions with company profiles. So it's great if you need additional information on a specific company or industry. And then for Focus 2, it offers self-assessments to learn how your personality, interests, and skills align with academic and career options. So it's always fun doing self-assessments, and this might be a great time to do them. You know, if you need something to do, and this can always be linked to career. As for Interview Stream, I love this one. You're able to practice interviewing at any time, anywhere from a computer or a mobile device with industry-specific interview questions. And this is great, especially now that especially now that everything is going virtual and people are starting to get virtual interviews and stuff like that and talk with professionals, via screen. It's very important to pick up on, social cues or, anything to see also how you look, because the thing with Interview Stream is that they're giving you these questions, you're able to practice interviewing, but it also records you. So you're able to look back at the footage and pick up on, like, am I moving my hands too much? Am I not looking, am I not speaking up? Like, what are some things that I can work on, especially now that we're going virtual? I feel like this is just a necessity. And then finally, Going Global. So this provides internship, employer, and sponsorship databases to aid your job or interview search in the US and abroad. So if you're hoping to go abroad, or if you're an international student, then this is a great resource for students.
Absolutely. And a lot of these resources typically come with a fee to access them. But through Handshake and through your UCLA login, you can access all of these platforms for free. So we definitely recommend you take advantage of them while you're in school.
Great. Okay. So, oh, sorry, Grace.
Oh, no. Let's say it together. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for getting through this presentation with us. We know it's a long one. Feel free to break it up if you need to do so. But thank you, and continue to stay connected with us at the Career Center. As you can see, we have an online platform, Facebook, and this is where, as Grace mentioned, you'll be able to get current and updated information, especially as things change and events start to change with the times, with us being virtual. And then also stay connected with us career peers, such as Grace and I. Stay connected with us on Facebook, Instagram, and then also our email if you have any specific questions, or looking for us to do any collaborations if students are a leader of a group or anything. So stay connected with us, definitely.
Absolutely. And connecting with us on social media is a great way to stay up to date on the cool events that are happening virtually or in person in kind of an organic way. So I definitely recommend it. Wonderful. Yeah. This is the last slide, so I think we're completely finished.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.